friend of mine had some fantastic luck recently. My old buddy Casey, he had some fantastic luck recently. He married a rich woman. How did he do that? How in the world did Casey marry a rich woman? I mean, he and I worked construction together. You know, I mean, neither one of us have ever had very much money or anything, but you know, we've always done all right. But yeah, my old buddy Casey married a rich woman, and oh man, he's doing great now. I don't know where he met this woman. I don't know how they met or anything, but they met and fell in love and they got married. She'd been married a couple of times before. Her first husband died. He was rich. He left her a lot of money. Her second husband, she divorced him. She got a lot of money in the divorce settlement. And somehow she and Casey met each other, and they are now married. They've been married about a year. But it's just incredible. Just incredible. My old buddy Casey married now. We used to talk about stuff like that. You know, we used to talk about being rich. Yeah, I know Casey 30, 35 years. We went to school together. He and I used to talk about stuff like that, being rich, you know. Never dreaming that it would happen to either one of us. Man, this is phenomenal. You know, so naturally, after Casey got married, I said, well, that's probably the last time I'll ever see him or hear from him. I said, he's rich now. He'll be associating with rich people. He won't have any time for poor folks like me. And so I just said, hey, forget it, you know. And so you know what? For a whole year, I never heard from Casey. I never saw him. I never heard from him or anything. It was just like I say. Just like I say, he just seemed to fall off the face of the earth. I said, hey, he's rich now. I said, he's married this rich woman. Her name is Kathleen. And like I said, he's rich. He hasn't had any time to associate with poor folks like me. So, you know, I said, hey, forget. But yeah, last week, I heard from Casey. He called me, and he said, Art, would you come by and talk with me for a while? You know, I said, sure, if you want. He said, yeah. He said, I'd like to talk with you. He said, would you just come by and talk with me for a while? And so one day last week, I went over to Casey's place, and we had our talk. But at first, he had to give me a tour of his place. Oh, he lives in a fabulous place. That place must have 25 or 30 rooms. They've got 5 cars, 2 trucks, 4 motorcycles, a boat. They've got a swimming pool almost as big as a lake. Oh my, they got their own private golf course, their own private tennis court. Oh my goodness gracious, they got all kind of stuff in the house from Germany, England, Japan, Australia, Russia, China. Oh my goodness, just all kind of stuff. Inexpensive stuff too. Spain, just expensive stuff. Yeah, Casey gave me a tour of all the stuff that he has now, and you know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking at all that stuff. I said, well, I'll never have this stuff, so you know, I enjoyed looking at it. Yeah, he did that. He did that. And then after we had looked at all of his valuable material things, he said, Art, come on in here in the living room. Let's sit down and talk. I said, man, what is this talk? I said, you've been mentioning talk. I said, what do you want to talk about, Casey? And he said, Art, you know what? He said, in life, most of us, you know, we get hurt. He said, it just seems like some people do us dirt, you know. They just seem to mess us around real bad, and they hurt us, you know. Inside, Art, I'm talking about inside. He said, you know, in life, it just seems like there are certain people who do that to you. And I said, yeah, Casey, you're right. I said, I know I've been hurt by a lot of people. And he said, you know what, Art? He said, most people just take it and go on and forget about it. I said, yeah, they do. I said, Casey, there's really not a whole lot you can do about people treating you bad, treating you wrong. He said, well, that's what I used to think. He said, but, you know, I've changed my mind now. I said, what are you talking about, man? He said, you know what, Art? He said, rich people can pretty much do whatever they want. I said, yeah, I suppose you can. He said, you know what, Art? He said, I'm going to get revenge against all those people who did me wrong. He said, there's only a few that really hurt me real bad. But he said, I'm going to get my revenge against them. I said, oh, this is a joke, right? He said, no, this is no joke, man. He said, I'm rich now. Rich people can do anything they want to do. He said, I'm going to go find those people that hurt me so bad, and I'm going to get my revenge against them. I said, oh, come on, Casey, you got to be kidding, man. I said, you can't go back 25, 30, 35 years and look up people and get revenge again. He said, oh, yes, I can. I'm telling you now, rich people can do anything they want to do. He said, I'm rich now. He said, Art, my wife has so much money. He said, I can do anything I want to do. And he said, there are certain people that really hurt me real bad in my life, and I'm going to get revenge against them. And he said, that's why I called you over here. He said, I know you always keep track of where everybody is and who's dead and who's alive and all that stuff. He said, I know you know where those people are that I want to find. I said, come on, Casey. I said, man, this is sounding crazy. This is sounding sick. He said, I don't care. He said, I got a list of names here. He said, I want you to tell me where these people are. He said, I'm going to look those rascals up, and I'm going to get my revenge. I said, but he wouldn't give up. He kept insisting he would not give up. And he handed me a list. And I thought this whole thing was sick. But he was serious. He was serious. He was going to go get revenge against certain people that had hurt him real bad. The first name on his list was Chandra. He said, you remember her, Art? I said, of course I remember Chandra. I said, that was the girl in the 12th grade that you were so in love with. He said, yeah. Said she promised to go to the prom with me. You say, you remember that? I said, yeah. And he said, you remember how just a week before the prom she dumped me and told me she was going with some other guy? And everybody at the school just laughed at me and told me what a fool I was and how beautiful Chandra was, and there was no way she was ever going to go to the prom with somebody like me. He said, you remember all that? I said, yes, Casey, I remember all that. He said, man, that just destroyed me. He said, that hurt me so bad. He said, that hurt me so bad what Chandra did to me. She dumped me a week before the prom, and everybody at the whole school just laughed at me, told me what a fool I was. He said, I never got over that. He said, even though it happened 30 years ago, he said, I've never gotten over that. He said, I want to know where Chandra is. I'm going to get my revenge against her. I said, well, Casey, I tell you, I said, Chandra has worked at a bank now for probably 25 years. I said, she married a guy that works at one of the automobile factories around here. I said, she got married when she was 20 years old. I said, she and her husband had 3 kids. I said, their oldest kid was a son. I said, when he was 21, he married a pretty nice-looking girl. And I said, when he was 23, he shot her to death. He said she was cheating on him with another man, and he shot her to death. I said, so he's been in prison for life ever since then. And Casey said, what? I said, yeah. Chandra's oldest son shot his wife to death, and he's in prison for life. I said she had a daughter, and when her daughter was 19, she committed suicide. I said, nobody is sure about the reasons. I said, but yeah, Chandra's 19-year-old daughter committed suicide. And I said, she and her husband have a 17-year-old son that lives at home with them. I said, he's kind of weak in the head. I said, they don't think he'll ever be able to live on his own. He's not really mentally ill, but they don't know if he'll ever be able to live on his own. But that's the situation with Chandra. I said, she has not had a very happy life, Casey. I said, so I don't know what more you can do to her to punish her. I said, seems like somebody else has already done it for you. And old Casey said, oh, fella, Art, I didn't know any of this, man. So I didn't know any of this. I said, yeah, that's what happened with Chandra. I said, I think she's been punished enough. I said, I don't think there's much more you can do to her. So he just kind of wiped his jaw. He said, well, what about you remember a guy named Ruko when we were in the 8th grade? I said, yeah, I remember Ruko. He was a school bully. I said, that guy was so big. I said, he used to beat up all of us kids and take our lunch money and all that stuff. He said, yeah. He said, you remember old Ruko beat me up like 3 or 4 times and took my... I said, well, he did the same thing to me. I said, Casey, he did the same thing to me. He beat me up about 3 or 4 times, took my lunch money. I said, what can we do? That guy was so big. I said, I know the principal paddled him a lot of times, but that didn't stop him. I said, he just kept on doing his stuff. And Casey said, well, I don't care. He said, I'm going to get my revenge against him now. He said, do you know where Ruco is? I said, yeah, Casey, I know where Ruco is. I said, he's over on Mulberry Street. I said, he spends all of his time at his house on Mulberry Street. I said, Ruco has been in a wheelchair for 20 years. I said, 20 years ago, he had a terrible automobile accident, and he's been paralyzed from the waist down ever since. I said, so what are you going to do, Casey? You going to go over there and beat up Ruco in his wheelchair? I said, is that going to give you some satisfaction after 25 or 30? He said, oh, come on now. Aren't you got to be kidding? Is that where? I said, yes, that's where Ruco is. I said, Ruco has been in a wheelchair for probably 20 years or more now. Had a terrible accident, paralyzed from the waist down. I said, there's nothing you can do to him. Casey, there's nothing you can do to Ruco. And Casey said, oh, man, I didn't know that, Art. He said, I didn't know that. I said, doggone it. Well, he said, do you remember Mr. Loader, our phys ed teacher in school? I said, oh, yeah, who doesn't remember Mr. Loader? He said, you remember how he used to just seem to pick on me, making me do extra push-ups and extra sit-ups and making me run extra laps around the school? He just seemed to hate me, Art. Mr. Loader, our phys ed teacher, he just seemed to hate me. He was always doing something mean to me. And I said I was going to get my revenge against that guy. That's what Casey said to me. He said, I hated Mr. Loader. He said, Art, do you know where Mr. Loader is? I said, yeah, Casey, I know where Mr. Loader is. And Casey said, where is he? I said, he's underground. And Casey said, what? I said, yeah. I said, Mr. Loader's been dead for probably 15 or 17 years. He said, you got to be kidding. I said, no, I'm not kidding. I said, Mr. Loader's been dead for probably 15 or 17 years. I said, he was on a hunting trip down in Florida with a bunch of other guys, and I said, I think he had a heart attack, or he accidentally tripped over his gun and shot himself and died from his gunshot wound. Something happened, but I said, Mr. Loader's been dead for 15 or 17 years. I said, died down there in Florida on a hunting trip. I said, so there's nothing you're going to do to Mr. Loader. And Casey was so disappointed. He said, oh, man. He said, aren't you taking all the fun? I said, yeah. I said, I guess all the fun is going out of this for you, isn't it? He said, well, doggone it. He said, I never would have dreamed any of this kind of stuff had happened to these people. He said, I never would have dreamed anything. He said, well, what about Mr. Stevens? Do you remember Mr. Stevens? Our landlord? I said, I sure do. He said, well, Mr. Stevens, you said, you remember how he put me and my family out in the cold one winter? We couldn't pay the rent. And he put us out in the cold. That's what Casey said. He said, Mr. Stevens put us out in the cold. He said, Art, where is Mr. Stevens? I'm going to get that rascal. So he put us out in the cold and said if welfare hadn't helped us, so I don't know what me and my family would have done. Said, I've never forgotten that. He said, where is he, Art? Where is he? I said, well, Casey, I don't think you'll do too much to Mr. Stevens either. I said, Mr. Stevens is in an insane asylum. I said, he went crazy, I don't know, probably 18 or 20 years ago. I said, Mr. Stevens is in an insane asylum. I said, so you can forget about getting your revenge against your old landlord. And Casey was so hurt. He said, oh, good grief, man. I said, yeah. I said, Mr. Stevens is in an insane asylum. Been there for years. I said, he wouldn't know you from Adam if you went out there. I said, so I don't think there's much you can do to him to get your revenge. I said, I don't think there's much you can do to him to get your revenge. And so Casey said, well, doggone it, what about Mr. Kluger, the principal at our school, when we were in grade school and everything? So you remember him? I said, yeah, I remember. He said, you remember how he used to paddle me so much? I said, yeah, I remember how he used to paddle you. He said, well, okay, where's Mr. Kluger? He said, I'm going to get him. I said, I don't think you're going to do too much to Mr. Kluger. I said, Mr. Kluger is 95 years old now, Casey. I said, that man was an elderly gentleman when he was the principal at our school. I said, that man is 95 years old. He's been out at a nursing home for so long. I said, he's just skin and bone. I said, he wouldn't. Oh, I said, come on. I said, Casey, there's nothing you can do to Mr. Kluger. Boy, Casey was so disappointed. He was so disappointed. He said, oh, you're just taking all the fun out of this, man. I said, hey, I'm sorry, dude. I said, you wanted to know. I said, you wanted to know. I said, you wanted to know. I said, doggone it, that's just the way it is. He said, all right, what about Draker? He said, do you remember Draker? I said, yeah, I remember Draker. I said, Draker was a pretty rough character. I said, he was just a mean man. Even though he was young, I said, he was just a mean man. And Casey says, you remember what he did? How he ran over my puppy? I said, yeah, I remember how Draker ran over your puppy. And Casey said, yeah, I said he ran over my puppy right out there in the street in front of my house. Oh, Draker said ran over my puppy. And then he laughed about it. You remember that, Art? I said, yeah, I remember that, man. Yeah, said he laughed about running over my puppy. And then he hollered, hey, you idiot, you ought to keep your dog out of the road and I won't hit him. Art, he killed my puppy. I said, Casey, that happened. So he said, I don't care, man. He said, I don't care. So I never did get over that. I said, Casey, that happened 30 years ago. I said, I don't care. He said, I don't care. He said, I don't care. He said, where is Draker? He said, where is Draker? I said, well, Casey, I don't think you're going to get to Draker to do any harm to him either. I said, Draker's been in prison for probably the last, I don't know, 20 years maybe, or 15 or so like that. I said, people said that he killed a man. And I said, he said he didn't do it. And there was a lot of evidence, to support his claim that he was innocent. I said, but the jury found him guilty anyway. I said, his reputation was so bad. I said, almost everybody on the jury knew him. I said, I think everybody on the jury hated him too. I said, they sent Draker to prison for killing that guy. And I said, a lot of people said he didn't kill that dude. A lot of people said, no, said Draker didn't kill that guy. But he's been serving time in prison. He'll probably be there the rest of his life. I said, that's some pretty harsh punishment, man, to be serving life in prison for a murder you didn't commit. But that's where Draker's been for a long time. So I think I'd have to say that he's been punished for killing your puppy, Casey. I think I'd have to say that. And Casey, he said, Art, man, this is just awful. I never dreamed that any of this kind of stuff had happened to these people. He said, here I was looking forward to just going out and just getting my revenge against these people. He said, I've been looking forward to this for so long. And now you're telling me all these horrible stories. I said, well, they're all true. I said, you better believe that, my man. I said, they're all true. I said, every one of these stories I'm telling you is true. I said, you wanted to know about these people, and I'm telling you about them. I said, it's all true. I said, like I said, I don't know what more you can do to hurt these people that hasn't been done to them already. I said, I don't know what more you can do to hurt them. He said, well, what about Mr. Batchett? He said, you remember Mr. Batchett? I said, yeah, Casey, I remember Mr. Batchett. I said, that's the man that you bought your first car from. He said, it sure was. He said, I worked a long time to save up the money to get that car. That's what Casey said. He said, you remember when we used to go riding in it? He said, I only had it for about a week or two. And then it broke down on it. I said, Casey, I remember all that. I said, man, I remember all that. I said, you and me riding around in your car? I said, we thought it was a good car. I said, Mr. Batchett told us it was a good car. I said, man, you and me had fun for about 2 weeks, didn't we? He said, Art, he said, I'm going to get that guy. He said, man, I worked so hard and got blisters all over my finger. He said, Art, I did every kind of dirty, filthy job you could think of around this town to get up the money to buy that car from Mr. Batchett. He said, and then he sold me that lousy piece of junk and told me that it was a great car. It was awful for Mr. Batchett to do something like that to a young kid like me. I said, yes, it was, Casey. I said, it was a horrible thing that Mr. Batchett did, And so Casey said, well, I'm going to get my revenge against him now. He said, all I need for you to do is tell me where he is. I said, well, I said, Casey, I'm so sorry. I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm afraid you're not going to do too much to Mr. Batchett either. And once again, Casey said, what do you mean? I said, well, Mr. Batchett was into a lot of different things in his lifetime. I said, he sold cars, and I said, he sold weapons. And I said, he had several little businesses. Some people said they were legitimate businesses. Some said they were illegitimate businesses. I said, but Mr. Batchet was into just a little bit of everything in his lifetime. And I said, one of the things that he was into, he owned a restaurant of all things. I said it wasn't no fancy restaurant or anything, but I said it was his, and he owned it. And I said, one night about, about 20 years ago, I said, somebody came into Mr. Batchet's restaurant, and they tried to rob it. And I said, would you believe Mr. Batchet refused to give them any money? And they shot him dead. Oh, Casey was so shocked. He said, what? I said, yeah. This happened about 18, 20 years ago. I said, Mr. Batchet, one of his businesses, I said, this restaurant that he owned, I said, yeah, he loved that restaurant. I said, he loved that restaurant. And I said, yeah, he was at his restaurant one night, running his restaurant, and people came in. I said, I think it was one or two guys, and they tried to rob him, and he absolutely refused to give them any money. I said, they had guns, and I said, they grabbed him, and they hit him on the head with the guns, and they just threatened everything. They called him an old fool and put the gun in his mouth and said, we'll kill you if you don't give us some money. And he just refused. That was Mr. Batchet. He was that crazy about money. He was that crazy about money that he risked his own life to keep his money. And I said, they blew him away. I said, those robbers, I said, they didn't get any money because they ran out after they shot Mr. Batchet. I said, but yeah, that's what happened to Mr. Batchet. I said, the police did catch the guys that killed him. I said, yeah, the police got his killers. I said, that was definitely a fact. I said, all this was in the newspaper, I said, I'm surprised you didn't read. I said, a lot of the stuff about these different people was in the newspaper. Kay said, well, I don't read newspaper. I never was much for reading newspapers and then magazines. He said, that's why I called you, because I know you do all that kind of stuff. You keep up on all details. And I said, I knew you would know where all these people were. I said, I sure didn't know that all this kind of stuff had happened to them. I said, here I was expecting you to come over here and just give me addresses and possibly even phone numbers so I could go get these people. And I said, here you are telling me all these sad stories. I said, well, hey. I said, Casey, like I said, everything I'm telling you is true. I said, everything I'm telling you is true. I said, so I'm sorry that I've spoiled your plan for revenge. I said, like I said, there's not much you're going to do to Chandra that hasn't been done to her. I said, there's not much you're going to do to her. And Ruko, like I said, I don't think you want to go over and beat him up in his wheelchair. I said, I don't think you want to do that. And I said, Mr. Loader is dead. And I said, I just don't, I said, all these others that I told you about. I said, Casey, I don't think there's anything you can do to get revenge against people that have hurt you in the past. I said, just like I told you, I said, people have hurt me, man. I said, people have hurt me. I said, I remember a lot of the people that have done me wrong. I said, there are days when I don't think about anything else but a lot of the bad stuff that people did to me when I was young and everything. And, I said, Casey, there's been, times when I wondered why they did the things they did, and I kind of wondered, would I have enjoyed getting revenge against them? I think there have been times when I thought about something like that. I said, but I never made no plans to go get no revenge against anybody, Casey. I said, I never made no plans to go get no revenge against, to go back 25 or 30 years. I never did nothing like that. I said, man, this thing that you had worked out here, this list of names you had and this plan, I said, what were you going to do to these people? Shoot them? Stab them? Run them over with your car? Hire somebody to drown them? I said, man, what are you planning to do to these people? He said, oh, well, it doesn't matter now. I said, Casey, this whole thing was sick, man. I said, this whole plan of yours, I said, it was sick. This whole plan was sick. I said, goodness. I said, man, I thought you called me over here to show me your plays and, brag about how rich you were. I said, I could understand that. I said, I could understand it. I said, that's the only reason I thought you called me over here was just to brag about how rich you are now and to show me all the material possessions you have now and everything. I said, I figured there was a reason you called me over. I said, but when you told me about this sick plan of yours of going back, finding all these people and getting revenge and all that, I said, man, that made me sick to my stomach. I said, but I figured it's my duty to go ahead and tell you, and so that's what I've done. I said, I've told you everything that you could possibly want to know about these people. I said, so I think you understand now, Casey, revenge doesn't work. I said, man, revenge doesn't work. I said, no matter what somebody does to us, revenge doesn't work. I said, we can make plans to get revenge against somebody, but it doesn't work. I said, it seems like revenge always has to come from someplace else. So remember that, Casey. Remember that. You can't get revenge against anybody. Revenge always has to come from someplace else. I found that out early in life. And I'm glad to pass that information on to you. So that's what I told my buddy Casey, and I think he'll be a better person now. I mean, all that weight has been lifted off his shoulder. I think he'll be a much better person now. I feel better. I feel good. I'm still poor. I'll never be as rich as my old buddy Casey, but I sure feel good. And I sure don't have any desire to get any revenge against anybody. No, I do not. I don't have any desire to get any revenge against anybody.